All right, welcome to FAWKES News. Big show for you today, as always. But, normally on a Wednesday, we have lots of stories. And then this is our long form podcast news episode of the week. It's not a quickie. But today, I feel like we're going to take up all of our time with the whole Iran thing. So we're just going to go over the Iran thing. Briefly, I wanted to talk about the whole plane crash and then also this assassination that happened in Minnesota. But I think just for the sake of not losing my mind in research and trying to force my way to talk extremely fast to get through things, let's just talk about the elephant in the room. We always like it when Trump is in office for the sole fact that the news will never die. Like there's always something to talk about while Trump's in office. And I think that's why the media allowed Trump to actually get elected because they were like, hold on. We were making a lot more money when Trump was in office. We can start riots. We can generate a lot of fear a lot easier. It's easier to hide the things that the big government is doing when Trump's in office because while the big government, while the World Economic Forum, while the world leaders are being exposed during other administrations, while big government is in power, when Trump is in power, we can just literally use him as a scapegoat and he'll say something audacious and everybody's eyes will be on him and we can kind of go back to maneuvering. So it actually, Trump seems to be helping the big government in more ways than I think he would like to. So I think for today's sake, we're just going to stick with a war with Iran because it's coming. It's here. If it's not coming, and I want to know what everybody's opinions. I want to know what are our options on this. I just want to have a general discussion on this. And we're going to take it in a couple of different directions. Before I get into that, though, today's show is brought to you by factormeals.com/wolfpack50. 50% off plus free shipping on your first order. Head over to factormeals.com/wolfpack50 OFF for 50% off. Also, a caveat to today's show is I'm a C minus student at best. All right. So my knowledge on this comes from one, I've served in war, in combat, in the United States military. So I have a general basic idea of the Middle East from that perspective. And then I've been in news commentary now for about 6 years. And so I have studied all over the place. However, I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none. So I don't think that you should take Eric's opinion and just run with that and say, like, this is what I believe in without first doing your own research and listening to other people's opinions and perspectives. It's not just opinions, it's based on people's perspective, their religious perspective, their tax benefit perspective, their stock and trades perspective. There's a lot of different perspective into something like this. Also, I've had to study up on Ukraine, Russia, Korea. I've had to study up on Taiwan and China. I've had to study up on the different parts of Ukraine and how I've had to study up on Vladimir Zelensky and all of the things that he's done in the past. I've had to say, so what I'm saying is that my brain is very stretched. My bandwidth is so thin. I still have my Ukrainian flag up, and now we're back to Israel flags, and then Iranian flags, and then the Palestinian, and the Gaza, and the Hamas, and the Houthis, and the you know what I'm saying? Do you get you see where I'm coming at? Live chats. Uh, a man can only learn so much about stuff that he only generally cares about. So I say all that to say, you don't have to hate me for my opinion and for my perspective on today's show. In fact, I'm probably more open than not to hearing what your opinions are on the whole subject matter as I learn more about this. What I think is important to note is that, and I say this all the time, that any time that we're going to categorize or we're going to do what they did to us during COVID, where we're going to literally, or what the Bush administration did to me, and I fell for it back then, when we start to compartmentalize each other, that's a problem. And we're doing it so much more now. And I love that the age of social media, we're able to look at so many different perspectives that now it's getting harder to compartmentalize. I know that you think it's easier, but it's really not because sometimes I think now on social media, you can see the difference in opinions so fast. And there's so many people that you like and respect that have differences of opinions that you're now almost forced to critically think because you're like, oh, I really like that guy, but his take is this. And then I really like this guy, but his take is this. And now I have to form an opinion. And so I do think we are slowly but surely inching our way to a more free thinker, critical thinker. I think the days of full on media manipulation and full on propaganda, which has plagued us for over 100 years, because that's been the only voice. The newspaper, and then the news, and then the big 24-hour mainstream news, and then mainstream internet. And then, now we're in this era of social media technology where you're getting to hear a lot of different perspectives, and they are getting the same notoriety as mainstream was getting when it was the only thing that you were consuming was the mainstream opinion or the opinion from government sponsored and big corporation sponsored information. And that goes back hundreds of years. So I'm really, I think we're in a good place. I don't want to compartmentalize. I don't want to be called anti-Jew. I don't want to be called like Islamophobe. I don't want to be called all these. And anytime we start to see that, we have to end it, because you're allowed to have opinions without being a Nazi, without being a Zionist, without being anti-Semitic, without being, homophobic or Islamophobic or Asian phobic or China phobic, whatever the phobics are. You're allowed to have opinions and not be those things. And if we can't do that, then the only option is not diplomacy. The only option that you have going forward is to drop bombs. With me today, I have Jason Kiefer from One More and I'm Out of Here podcast, here for his awesome opinions, coming out of Cincinnati, Ohio. This is a live chat. I appreciate everybody being in the chats. Elijah Corn Pop was a bad dude. Bosco Atria, see you. Loren, I see you. Murph 530. Also, June Billy, I see you. Gonna see a lot more of you at the end of the summer. Joni, good morning. Joni the Yoga Meister up in there. Good to see all of you guys. Wazman 999, all the way from the UK, coming across the pond. Just watched a film with my wife. I'm having to catch up on film, not movies, but film. And I can't tell you why. I cannot tell you why. I wish I could tell you why. But now I'm trying to learn as much about certain aspects of film as I possibly can right now. And I watched a film with Shia LaBeouf. And I can't give too much information because I don't want to give you guys too many clues. I'll just say that Pig Latin, something crazy has come down the pipeline, and you guys are going to learn more about it over the summer. So stay tuned. But the whole movie, Shia LaBeouf had an English accent. And most people, I've never seen this movie. I've never even heard of this movie until I watched it. And let me tell you, when you watch somebody have an accent and then you start to research the same accent and then you realize how far off they were, it really sucks. Because if I were to just watch the movie as a layman, like it's just as a connoisseur of entertainment, I would be like, great job. But then if you like start to study the actual dialect or the accents, whatever, then you're like, oh shit, he's not doing a very good job at that.
He's way off.
He's way off. So anyway, look, could I do it better, Jason? Absolutely not. How about another shrimp on the barbie, mates?
You mix your British and Australian accents together, and it's cracks
with a little bit of with a little New Jersey in there.
Yeah. Let's go to the beach and find a needle.
I went to a private party. It was awesome. Mary Daig was there. I ended up hanging out with her most of the night. She's the one that lost both her arms, the EOD girl, and her and I and her husband pretty much hung out. But one of the women there was British from the UK, and she was actually the host of the party. And so I was very British, and I had a lot of British things and British flags, and you know what I'm saying. And I like your manners. I like your children's manners. It's good to be in the US where you see your children with the manners. You know what I mean? And so anyway, I feel more British now than ever. Thank you, Wazman 999. But I cannot recreate her accent at all.
Fucking
and it's hard to say. It's hard to know where the English are in certain politics and stuff. You know?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's because you don't know exactly what they're getting over there versus what we're getting news wise, and with all the rhetoric. You know,
They also have very judgy eyes. British people have very judgy
they
undertones.
actually scare me.
Maybe it's just the accent, but like I feel like British people think that we're stupid. Like, I think British people think we're all rednecks.
I agree with you.
You think so?
No, absolutely.
At least that's the tone I get.
I went to school with a guy who came over from England. His family came over and kind of had this exact same conversation as far as like how different things are over there. And I mean, this is years ago, but he said almost to a T what you just said.
That we're all a bunch of rednecks.
That America's the trailer park of England.
I'll take it, dude.
Dude,
I'll
that's
take it.
so funny that you
No
brought that up.
kings,
Man.
no kings, no kings.
Yeah, I was gonna see how your march went, your protest that you went to over the weekend. The No
It
King.
worked. I worked. I woke up today and we had no kings. So,
It's weird, isn't
what did you do for our country?
it?
What did you do for our country? British think we're all idiots. You know what? But maybe that's why they put the British people on the newscast. So, like, maybe we need Wazman to say everything that I'm actually thinking, and then the rest of the world will believe it. Like, if he was on here and he'd be like, what I'd like to say, folks, is that I really think we should be critically thinking. No, I just went back to Australia, didn't I?
You can't not do it. I mean, I've known you for a couple of years now, and every time I hear you say it, I'm like, is he
Even if I'm
Australian?
trying
Is
to
he
do
British?
Mexican, even if I'm trying to do like a Mexican Hispanic, it always for some reason goes Australian, and nobody thinks Australians are smart. Like nobody's gonna put like an Australian newscaster on because you're just like, God, would you just take the fucking marbles out of your mouth already? You know what I mean?
Oh,
I get that is like the Boston accent to me. Like, there's nothing more annoying to me than a Australian accent than a Boston accent.
go park the car.
Pack the car. It's yeah. I don't know. I don't get it. I'm just kidding, guys. Like, listen, it's all in good fun here, but no. But I'm seriously. I wish I could be as smart and condescending and say literally nothing, but just have the accent so it sounds like I said something important. Do you ever get the feeling that when you're watching mainstream news and they bring on the British correspondent, that even what he's saying is, what do they say in British? Even if what they're saying is hogwash,
Rubbish.
that rubbish, it still sounds like they're saying something intelligent.
Oh, Jill in the chat said, and I should have thought about this, but her and Zoe for Father's Day got me a T-shirt that has George Washington on it and
Okay.
says it's only treason if you lose. That they picked out, and I should have wore it. Jill Billy put in the comments, and I failed you. I failed you, dear. But
You failed all of us.
that's
Okay, so here's what I want to get into today's topic of discussion, which is war with Iran. I know this is a touchy subject. The reason why I want to talk about it though is because I've always been very close to Iran and Iran wars. I've always been privy to the information, even when I was serving under special operations. I was working hand in hand with the intel community. You know, everything always came back to Iran. I had a Scud missile incident where we found some large scale Scud missiles with all the boosters and the warheads attached, and the investigation came back that they were Chinese Scud missiles, and that they had made their way into Afghanistan by ways of Iran. Iran through Pakistan. And then also a lot of your terrorist attacks on American soldiers fighting in Iraq and Syria and things were all funded through Iran. So I always said this when I was fighting Bush's fake wars. Why are we at war with Iran? If everything that we do comes back to Iran, why are we in Afghanistan and Iraq? Make that make sense to me. And maybe I'm wrong there, but from my perspective, all of my briefings always, if you were to draw a family tree of combat operations, the trunk of the tree seemed to always be Iran by ways of Pakistan. And I'm not going to tell you I'm wrong, because I literally sat in the briefings, and that's what the big government told me. And I don't think if you've served in the military that you would argue with me at all on this. Matter of fact, there are current, and I've been asked to actually travel. I believe it was actually Minnesota. I turned it down, but there was a they were suing they were suing the federal government. No, I'm sorry, they were suing Iran and holding money from Iran in some kind of weird you could probably Google. I probably should have Googled it before today's show. But anyway, it was a big lawsuit, and it was that they'd seized some kind of Iranian assets here in America, and instead of it going to the American government, they were going to parcel it out to anybody who was involved in any conflict that was funded through Iran. And so I guess one of the operations that I got to serve under was an operation that was ultimately funded by Iran. But I didn't know enough about it, and I turned the whole thing down because I was like, "Yo, this seems crazy to me." But it's been in the mainstream news more than once, and if Josh was here, I'd have him bring it up for you. But Josh isn't with us this morning because he's not feeling well, so we're going to move on from it. So, what my perspective on this whole thing is that Iran has always been some kind of a threat, and I can remember Hillary Clinton's very infamous Iran deal. And still to this day, if you try to Google Hillary Clinton's Iran deal, what you have to ask yourself, why does the media, will they only show you nothing but praise for Hillary Clinton's? You cannot find one article, you cannot find one video or anything through mainstream Google or YouTube that shows you the other side of Hillary Clinton's Iranian deal. You will only get a one-sided perspective, either from CNN, CNBC. You will unless you type in Fox News first, you'll get that opinion. But they have nothing but praise in the first 25 pages. Head over to YouTube right now and just type in Hillary Clinton Iran deal is bad. You will get nothing but 50 or so articles of Hillary Clinton's historic Iran deal.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. It's nothing but praise for Hillary Clinton's very bad, very deadly Iranian deal.
So before we went live, I Googled exactly Hillary Clinton Iran deal. And you get that AI overview, before you dive into the articles. But it goes, in summary, Hillary Clinton played a significant role in creating the conditions for the Iran nuclear deal, endorsed it upon its finalization while advocating for tough enforcement and broader strategy. And it's the wording, to your point, is they don't smack it down by any means. It's she played this significant role in presenting this, and it was fucking garbage.
Well, when I remember having a friend of mine, an old friend of mine, who was an Iraqi person, and he was, very adamant of how bad that deal was. He has since gone through some ketamine treatments, and now he is extremely far left wing and suffers from Trump derangement syndrome. But when he was brought, when I knew him earlier on, I don't know how he would feel about the Iranian deal now, but he was extremely, he's the one that pretty much educated me on the Iranian deal back in the day and how bad it was. And he was so anti-Iranian. I have no idea what he is now. Cause I don't really talk to him very much anymore, but the Iran deal, as it was relayed to me, was extremely, and I remember, this was in the very early days of podcasters, but I can remember hearing not only podcasts, but people like Sean Hannity and all the guys before that they had podcasts who were on mainstream media talking about how bad the Iranian deal was. And I remember thinking this was like 2016 and earlier, like, 2009, 2010, even going back that far with Iran and everything. But I remember thinking, I wonder how this plays out, because if the Democrats were right with their Iran deal, then we should have peace in the Middle East, or, we should be somewhere closer to peace in the Middle East. If it doesn't work, then you're talking about global war. And the Iranian deal only called for about 8 years of safety. But in that 8 years, Iran was given every opportunity to enrich themselves almost scot-free. So I want to play a clip for you. And this is, I had to dig very hard to find this clip, to find any clip, because again, big mainstream media and conglomerates, Google and everything like that, they don't want you to see this. So they will only, I've said on this that the age of book burning is literally the internet. They just hide from you what your Google searches is what big corporation and big government and the big world powers want you to see. So you can even be as specific as you want. You can type in 2016 Hillary Clinton Iran deal, and the top leading things are going to be whatever Google wants you to see that are from 2025, for instance. So let me go ahead and play this video that I dug up for all of you.
Welcome back to Hannity. So the Iranian nuclear deal may actually be worse than we originally imagined. Now, according to reports under the disastrous agreement, get this, Iran is going to have access to one.
Now, this, I believe, was from like 2016, I believe.
He looks
$150 billion in assets. By the way, based on the size of their economy, that's the equivalent of $8 trillion US dollars coming into this country. That, of course, after sanctions are lifted. And the rogue regime in Tehran, get this, within 8 years, they will be able to buy ballistic missiles, and within 5 years, they can purchase conventional weapons. Now, Iran is also given the power to delay inspections of a suspected nuclear site for at least 24 days under the deal, and unfortunately, that's not all. The AP is now reporting that as part of a secret side deal with the United Nations, quote, Iran will be allowed to use its own inspectors to investigate a site it has been accused of developing nuclear arms there. Seriously? Can you make a worse deal? Joining us with reaction, Fox News military analyst, Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters. All right, Ralph, let me go through this slowly again. We didn't even get 4 American hostages. They get the equivalent of $8 trillion US dollars based on the size of their economy. They get conventional weapons. They continue to spin centrifuges, which will guarantee nuclear weapons. They get 24 days notice of an inspection. They get to pick their own inspectors, no US inspectors. What is wrong with this president?
Now, before he speaks, this was 9 years ago. So we're going back in time, guys. So when everything that he's saying, fast forward 9 years. Remember that number, 9 years ago. This was 9 years ago. So everything he's going to predict, put 9 years on that prediction. Here we go. You ready? Are you guys with me? Sword in Scripture, the unfiltered Muslim says the Genocide Convention was created in response to the Holocaust, and it serves as first human rights treaty. Oh, so that's like spam, like a paid bot, I guess. Because that's not, we haven't even touched any of that. So
right.
Congratulations, Sword in Scripture. Paid actor here.
Paid actor.
Whatever helps the numbers, though, right? All right, here we go. You guys ready in the chats?
How dumb is he?
Well, he's not dumb. He's just incredibly arrogant and vain and egotistical.
He's not talking about Trump, by the way. He's talking about Obama. This is about Obama.
But, the first problem obviously is that the IAEA is not even going to be able to lay hands on or personally inspect the Parchin site, a key nuclear development site. And the IAEA came out today and said, oh, well, we'll be able to monitor on video. Well, good luck with that. The next question, Sean, is what other military sites might fall into this protocol? But, this is ugly. But there's something even uglier, something vastly more shameful. And that's the President Obama and Secretary Kerry knew about this deal. They had to know, and they did not tell the American people. They did not tell Congress. Those two men have been more open with our enemies than they have been with the American people.
I say dumb because this is really.
All right, so here's the this is the foreshadowing, right? Like this is the preliminary. This next part of this is what I want you to hone on to, because these are where the predictions come from.
Stupid, and I'll tell you why. Because we are pretty much assured that the #1 state sponsor of terror that said the destruction of Israel is not negotiable, that was burning U.S. flags and Israeli flags and threatening to wipe Israel off the map during the negotiations. We have given them everything Can you tell me one thing we've gotten out of this deal? Just name one thing except assuring that our kids will live under the threat of an Iranian radical Islamic regime that wants to kill us with weapons of mass destruction?
Yes.
What did we get?
Yeah. Well, President Obama got his legacy. Unfortunately, it will not be the legacy he wants in the long run. But, in your list of all the sins of this awful deal, this wretched deal, you left something out. In the shorter term, Iran is going to get a network of 4 S-300 air defense systems. They are strategic systems, make it much harder for the Israelis or for us or anyone to go in and destroy these facilities if they had to be destroyed. So what this deal does, everybody's focusing just on the nukes, and that's bad enough. But it also essentially green lights. It gives us stamps of approval to Iran's ambitions in the area, its support of terrorism, its aggression. As you noted, it funds that support of terrorism and aggression. It helps them prepare to defend against a future strike. This is so immeasurably bad.
So money,
only an Ivy League graduate
nukes,
could like it.
Conventional weapons, intercontinental ballistic missiles.
And so if you fast forward, because they said 8 years, but you fast forward to 9 years, but if you go off of their prediction of 8 years, what happened at the 8-year mark? October 7th. October 7th happened. You had a regime that promised you.
I was going to chime in, but I was looking up something. Sorry.
The Ayatollah, they said from the beginning, for all of these negotiations, that their whole goal was to wipe Israel off of the map. Now, there is an argument there of like, what do we have, what are our obligations to Israel? And most of those obligations are based on religious aspects, but they are also probably, well, I wouldn't say probably, but name one country surrounding them that has what Israel has, which is all the things that the left really, really wants. Israel has it. They have diversity. They have a freedom to do things. They have gay rights. They have women's rights. Name the countries surrounding them that have those things.
I was going to say because Israel is the only. It's that whole. I'm looking at a picture of what's different, and
right.
Israel is the difference in that whole region. And I was going to say earlier, I'm 45, and as long as I can remember, getting out of kindergarten and all that shit, but you would hear your parents had the news on. I always heard Iran, us and Iran having an issue of some type, some way, shape, or form from probably, and it's been, longer than I've been alive, but the fact that I remember hearing this shit when I was a child. Everyone was worried about going to war with Iran, you heard that constantly.
Oh, yeah.
In most households. And so it's just funny to see now here we are circling back and now they're lobbing fucking, missiles at each other like they're throwing baseballs over a fence.
Well, they were finally funded. So we had, all through the 90s, you had sanctions on Iran that kept Iran at bay. Here's the crazy thing, too. A lot of people don't have a clue what Iran even looks like. You picture in your brain as like an Iran looking like an Iraq or an Afghanistan. In reality, it's not. I mean, it's not like a Dubai, but it's more like a Qatar or like a, it is a very advanced Middle Eastern, very mountainous, also with beautiful beaches. They have a killer food scene. It is a very advanced country when you look at it compared to Afghanistan, Iraq, or even Pakistan. It's also very big. It's also very large. And it's built like Colorado. And so it's very, very fortified. And so a lot of the, one of the things that people will ask is why didn't we go? And of course I ask this, why are we going to war with Iran? Iran would be like going to war with Afghanistan if Afghanistan had any sort of structure to it. So it would have been even more difficult to go to war with Iran than it would be to go to Afghanistan. And of course it's infinitely harder to attack than Iraq would have been. So by proxy, you have Syria, you have Iraq, but Iran itself is extremely advanced and a lot more fortified than Iraq and Afghanistan. So it would not be it wouldn't be an easy task. Also, they're able to hide themselves deep, deep, deep into the mountains. And if you haven't actually been to the mountains of Afghanistan or the mountains of Pakistan or anywhere near Iran, it's like the Rockies on steroids. You can't even fathom, like, you've seen the ocean and you've seen how vast the ocean is, right? Endless water. Well, that's what it's like flying into Afghanistan. When you're flying over the mountains, you look out the window of your aircraft and it is a sea of uninhabited mountain range where if you got lost out there, there would be no finding you. And I don't think a lot of people can grasp that haven't actually looked out the plane window and seen a sea of white capped mountains and not a single building or a living, like a human existence. You know what I mean? Because even if we fly through Colorado, you might see a mountain range, but you can see some kind of a blinking light, or you can see some kind of human made. There's not that flying over there. So very easy to hide in those mountains, very easy to get away. It's not like the United States. It's not like any other country. And Iran is the place is very easy to get to hide in. So if you're going to try to take out these nuclear programs and things like that, you're going to have to go through lots of rounds. And I say all that because we do have a defense for their mountainous strongholds, and that's the Moab. Israel doesn't have that. Israel doesn't have the Moab, and they don't have the capabilities of delivering a Moab. So America has to directly involve themselves into helping Israel, or Israel doesn't have a chance. And if Israel doesn't have a chance, and it's surrounded on all sides, on all sides of the map, Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, then we have no more stability in the Middle East whatsoever. And now all you have is general chaos and a whole bunch of countries that absolutely cannot stand America. So I ask, I don't think that we should go to war with Iran, but I think we have to. I should reword that. I think the decisions made mainly by Democrats have forced us no choice. And I hate that because I don't feel like there's a war, that we should have a war at all. Like, I don't want to be involved in Israel's bullshit at all.
But like what you're saying, I feel like that's what we're getting pushed into. It's not that we're jumping into it, we're getting pushed into it.
Yeah. And I think that was big government's. I think that, and that's why big government hated Donald Trump so much, because Donald Trump, and that's what's so funny too, is that Donald Trump has done nothing but scream diplomacy, diplomacy, diplomacy. Come to the table, come to the table, come to the table. He's been very transparent about that. And yet we have comedians that have night shows that are government-sponsored propaganda shows that are making fun of Trump and criticizing him on diplomacy, which I think is a wild take. I think that's a wild take because, they loved Hillary Clinton's diplomacy, which her diplomacy was basically, let's give them all the money. And that was another thing I can't understand, is Hillary's Iran deal was so obviously bad that what was ever the purpose? And I asked this in 2016 at the height of the Iran deal. What was the purpose of giving them money and giving them so many outs for this deal for only us to get nothing left? It was almost like, are you trying to get Iran to go to war with Israel? Because that's what they're going to do. We've always known that. It's biblical. It's not only is it biblical or historical, but they've literally said, the Ayatollah has said on paper, like, these are in negotiations. They have said, we will not stop until Israel is gone. So, like, when we talk about genocide and we talk about other sides of the fence, like, Iran has always called for the genocide of anybody that's not Ayatollah, basically.
My stepdad used to have this saying, and he wasn't a great man, but he was like, the time that they stop fighting is a time that we need to be worried, because they've been fighting for thousands of years over there. Just the Middle East in general. And I'm not picking a country, just that whole geographic area. They've been fighting for thousands of years. When they stop, that's when we have to look at each other and go, "Oh shit," because it's gonna turn.
So I always liked that, when Israel attacked Gaza and it was all about genocide, and everybody was like, "Stop the genocide! Stop the genocide!" Obviously, I'm not for genocide either. That doesn't make me anti-Jew.
Correct.
I'm never for killing innocent people. I'm pretty anti-war. Like I want diplomacy. I don't want war. But I also don't own stocks. So
The politicians want war.
politicians want war. This is coming from The Hill in 2016. Again, very difficult to go back in time. You have to be very specific on your searches to find this. By Clinton allowing Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon through catastrophic Iran nuclear agreement, which Iran has repeatedly violated, can be potentially genocidal, which Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme Iran leader, no kings, no creams, only supreme Iran leaders, has made clear she has never once objected to his repeated promises to wipe Israel off the map. That's always been the call from Iran. Supporting Iran with its clear and present danger to the survival of the state of Israel and its promise to bring death to America is a greater danger. I wish I could sit Trump down in a locked room and tell him I'm not going to let him out until he understands that I have a son serving in the IDF on the Israel-Lebanon border right across from Hezbollah, Iran's terror proxy army. If Clinton wins the election, Hezbollah will get billions more money funneled from a Clinton administration that can further endanger my son's life. As an American Jew who believes that stopping genocide is the foremost issue of any age, my number one concern today is stopping Iran from getting a nuclear weapon and stopping their weapons flow to terrorists. But senior Obama advisor Ben Rhodes revealed to the New York Times that the administration, with Clinton as Secretary of State, was negotiating with Iran. Even Muhammad Ahmadinejad was president. In Christianity, personal salvation always comes before communal redemption. It is the righteousness of the man that matters. In Judaism, however, communal salvation is paramount. A person's character is subordinate to their actions and the mark they leave on the world. So I want to go on and read this article because I think it's important. I couldn't care less about Bill Clinton's affair with Monica Lewinsky. While others condemned him for demanding the office of the presidency, I always maintained that his failure to stop the 1994 Rwandan genocide was infinitely worse. What Bill Clinton did behind closed doors had no impact on our lives, but when he didn't stop the Rwandan slaughter for a period of 3 months, 330 Africans were being slaughtered every hour without anyone to save them. When it comes to leadership, it's not personal morality that we look for, but the public contribution to the world's improvement. Hillary Clinton has promised to fund a government that hangs gays and stones women, which speaks to a general unwillingness to confront evil. And this was coming from 2016. There wasn't a lot of pro Hillary Clinton Iran deal. But if you Google it now, it makes Hillary Clinton's Iran deal like it's been propped up as almost like they're like, this was a bad idea, and now we have to gaslight you into thinking that it was good by putting a whole bunch of because we know that you're not going to read. What we're going to do is just going to put a bunch of headlines that say how great it was, because we don't want people to go back in time and go, oh, she was wrong. Obama was wrong
about that. Oh, wait, hold on. Let's read into that a little bit more. And you're exactly right. People don't read anymore. They don't do their own, deep dive into, they'll grab clickbait articles and then, oh, well, yeah, that seemed like a logical deal. But if you really deep dive into it, no, it definitely was not.
So Corn Pop was a bad dude, said Epstein and Diddy worked for Mossad. I want to go there next. Not the conspiracy part of this, but I want to just bring up again another perspective, or at least my perspective, which might not be correct. Again, you can always agree with the roadmap that I use to get to the facts. You don't have to agree with my opinion of the facts. I'll explain that in a second, but before I do, summer is here. More sun, more light, more time to do all the things that make summer so special. The number one thing you don't want to be doing all summer is spending hours cooking inside. That's where Factor comes in. Factor chef crafted, chef prepared, Fresh and never frozen, dietitian-approved meals are ready in just 2 minutes, taking the hassle out of eating well. Factor meals arrive fresh and ready to eat, perfect for any lifestyle over the summer and beyond. Here's a news alert for you. Guess who's back? Back again. Guess who's back? Joey Chestnut.
Yes.
For another Nathan's National Championship. He took some time off and went back
all
to
those
Netflix.
glizzies.
He's back to slinging glizzies. And I'm here for it. And listen, I get so pumped up that I have to eat glizzies while I watch him eat glizzies. And so therefore I really have to prep and prepare for July 4th. I say this every year. If you followed me on any of the podcasts that I've been on, from the time I was with Drinking Bros to the time I was with Mike the Cop to now, you know that that because I'm a drinking bro and because I'm part of that culture, Joey Chestnut is a big part of my culture. And I'm a big Joey Chestnut fan. And therefore I involved myself in hot dog eating contest. I actually ate myself to the point I thought maybe I was going to have, like I was having heart palpitations. I did, like 2 summers ago. I don't know if it was the heat that got to me.
God, I'd have paid money to see that.
Or the sodium. But like I did the hot dog eating contest. And listen, I thought I was good for 4. I thought, you know what? My goal here. No, I'm sorry. I thought I was good for like 10. I was like, I think I can eat 10 ballparks. And they didn't have Nathan's. And then I saw the bread and I was like, you have to consume the bread too. And it was the ballpark bread. I guess it was a ballpark sponsored hot dog eating contest. And it was in Lake Wiley, South Carolina. And so I was like, that bread is fluffy. So I'm going to break it down to like, I'm going to take it down to like 8 or 9. I think originally I said 10. And then I was like, I think I'm going to like go 8 or 9 because of the bread. Bro, I think I hit 4 in the allotted time, which was like, it was like 15 minutes or 12 minutes. I don't remember what it was.
And you're sitting there like, oh God.
Dude, I hit 4 of these fucking hot dogs. And when it was all done, I didn't win. I think the person who won hit like 6.
Oh,
I wasn't far off.
You're so close.
I was so close. But I remember like, trying to be like, yeah, it was over and I ran and I cannonballed into the pool to like be cool dad. And when I came out of the water, I was like super dizzy. I was like, fuck, I got to sit down. And then it was like, then I started getting the meat sweats and I was like, oh, I don't. And then I started having the heart palpitations, and I was like trying not to like show pain. So I was just trying to like, I put my hat over my face and just laid back in the shade. And I think I spent like the next like 4 hours trying to overcome that. But you have to prep for these things, and Factor Meals is going to help you prep for those things. Factor Meals powers your day. Set up to sundown with nutritious breakfast, on-the-go lunches, premium dinners, and guilt-free snacks and desserts. Factor has your whole day covered. Head over right now. Failure to stop. Our customers here are you guys right now. Fox Media, FAWKS News. I'm sorry, Failure to Stop podcast, C-Minus Media, all of our shows here. Get started with factormeals.com/Wolfpack50OFF. Use the code Wolfpack50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code Wolfpack50 off at factormeals.com/Wolfpack50 off. 50% off plus free shipping. Factormeals.com/Wolfpack50 off. By the way, the only part of that ad read I have to read is that last paragraph. That Wolfpack50OFF. I'm like 18 times. That's all I'm required. So the fact that I talk more about it is on my own accord. Is because I enjoy it.
Well, that's good. I mean, yeah, that's good stuff. So it's worth talking about.
So let's go here. Right now, there are so many people that are completely ignorant to war, to what goes into war. They think that they have a perspective, and their perspective through that lens, they're trying to sell you on their opinion. And that's where we're at. We're always trying to sell people on why we are right and they are wrong. And I don't think that's how war, or the determining whether we should go to war or not, I don't think that's how it should look. And I'm guilty of this because when I served in Bush's war, I would not listen for 1 second anybody, and I would just immediately start shouting, "You're anti-war, you're a pussy, you're an anti-war, you're fucking Democrat, you're a hippie, blah, 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 blah." And I never listened. I never listened to those people. And had I listened, or at least explored other perspectives, I probably wouldn't have been so headstrong into trying to win an endless war and, lots of tax dollars and time spent and energy spent. I would have saved all of that. And so I don't want to say that I am pro going to war with Israel. But what I'm saying is this.
You mean
I mean, with Iran, sorry. Is Israel is a lighthouse. There's no doubt. I don't mean that in a positive way. I'm not saying that it's a positive thing. But what I'm saying is that if you were lost in the ocean of the Middle East, Israel is the one place that you will always be able to see something positive coming out of it. Progress. It's not there. It's not perfect, but neither is America. How long have we had gay rights?
And that's I was going to bring up, and I'm glad you kind of built that in that way, the way you just worded it, because I haven't served in the military. I've never been in combat, never been to war. I see the effects here stateside, and the amount of money that goes into it, the lives that are lost. These guys, boots on the ground that don't come home to their families. I don't understand that aspect of it, but I understand me sitting here having the ability to sit in a podcast studio with a TV and see all that stuff. So it's, war's bad. We know war's bad. But the problem is, and like I said earlier, the politicians want it, though, because that's where their money comes from.
It's where it funnels the money. Now, Will Craig brings up a good point, but does that mean we have to go to war for them? Here's where I'm confused on this. I want to be anti-war, right? Because I got duped into fighting Bush's war. Right? So I've always been kind of like, let's fuck off. Like I was fuck off of the Ukraine shit. I didn't stand for Ukraine. I don't stand for Russia either. But I'm like, not our problem. I don't care. I believe that Germany, France, England, if they care, if that's a direct threat to France, England, then they can get involved and they can put all their money and all their assets and all their efforts into it. If it's really that big of a deal, they'll go all in to stop it. Until they go all in, I don't think we should be going all in. Now, if they go all in, we kind of have to back them up because we can't afford to have Russia taking over France, England, Germany, Poland, Hungary. We can't have that. I understand that. I'm not naive to that. But I'm also thinking if it's that close, then let them go all in. Let them suffer a little bit. I don't have to. I also don't know enough behind the scenes, and nor do I believe most of you know anything behind the scenes enough that you can say what you would or you wouldn't do. Here's where I'm at with Israel. Israel is the only thing that we have over there that has any sense of stability in the regions. It really is. Yeah. And we know that Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, death to America has always been their battle cry. And you may not want to think that there's somebody out there across the pond that has no idea who you are, that hates you with every being, with every part of they absolutely cannot stand you in our way of life. They do not like Christians. They do not like Jews. And they believe, and you don't have to believe. I think it's silly to believe in nothing. I think that's much more ridiculous than picking anything else. Yeah. I think that's the one thing for me. It's like atheists to me are like that is the one anyway, I'm not going to go there, but that's the most ridiculous is to believe that there's nothing.
The problem is America's been like the watchdog for as long as I can remember and get involved. And it's because we have so many different ties to all these different countries that we feel like we have to get involved. And I've never understood that. And again, I'm not a politician.
Well, it's religious. That's why. Whether you'd like to think it or not, like I said, whether you believe or not, this whole thing is religious, right? Like, and the problem with it is that there isn't a religious battle, and if you're not on board with that, I'm too bad, because that's real. If you're not reading the Bible, if you're not trying to check out what the Quran has to say, if you're not reading, if you're not getting into Catholic history and King James and all these other, if you're not, then you will never ever understand war. You just will simply not, because it is biblical. Or comes from biblical times. And all of these is biblical from the Bible. It all starts from the Bible. The Quran, it's all mentioned in the Bible. All the things, it's all mentioned there. And so until you start going down that rabbit hole of faith and religion, you're never really going to understand war, or why the Muslims hate the United States so much, and why that in Texas they're trying to build a Sharia law town based under Sharia law. You're not going to understand why you have, people in Minnesota, Muslims taking over Minnesota, or Muslims taking over parts of France or in UK. And, I encourage you to try to have a conversation with a devout Muslim about homosexuality.
Yeah.
And the only time you're going to be able to have a conversation with a devout Muslim are the ones that aren't devout anymore. The American Muslims that have fallen into the pornography, that have fallen into the sex, have fallen into drinking alcohol and smoking pot, the ones that are living worldly as Americans, they're going to tell you that the Muslim faith is very accepting of everybody. Again, because they're not, it's like the LGBTQ plus Christian churches with the women pastors, with the fat woman pastor with the short hair, like that. They're not really Christian. They're not devout Christians.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's a sheep in wolf's clothing. 100%. And they're for the money. They're there to see their power. It's a power grab. I mean, and I say that with a lot of church activities. It's very much a power grab. That's where you go if you want power. You never fish in a pond that doesn't have any fish in it. So if you want power, you go to the place where you are able to move through the rank structure very easily, which is the church. Very few people are going to church for a religious experience. They're going for some sort of power grab, whether it is to lead a classroom of kids, or whether it is to lead, or maybe they're a pedophile and they're looking for. Very few people are just going to church to receive. Religion as it is.
Or you're grabbing clout in the community. Oh, wow.
Grabbing clout in the community. Yeah.
I go.
Don't get me wrong. There are it's far and few between. I do believe in church, and I do believe that as a whole, it is a very good thing. And I think it is very good for a community. In fact, I don't think a community can survive without the churches, because there is nobody else feeding the homeless, by the way. You don't see Democrats from the LGBTQ plus community setting up peanut butter and jelly stands being harassed by local police because you don't have a permit to feed the homeless. You don't see that happen with the LGBTQ plus community. You don't see that with the Dungeons and Dragons club. You don't see that with the local softball teams. They're not out feeding. The only people that are feeding the homeless, the only people that are running the shelters are religious backed and religious based human beings, or government sponsored, which don't do a very good job. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's actually a very good point.
You have to have these churches. However, I'm saying that in the church itself, there's a lot of power grab going on in there. There's a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing. And so if you really want to get down to the nuts and bolts, the Muslim culture is not what you desire. That is a culture that you do not want in its totality. It's anti-gay. It is anti-woman. It is very much very king supreme oriented.
Yeah.
You want to talk about no kings. You do not want Israel to fall in the Middle East, and for the Middle East to have nuclear capabilities, because if there's anybody that is not going to come to the table, it is going to be the Middle East. China will come to the table because they're not Muslim.
Well, and yeah, you have all these people that protest, and whatever major city, when they're fighting for excuse me, when they're standing up with their signs and marching down the street, and a lot of it is some of the I guess I'll call it the clans that you mentioned, the LGBTQ plus, all these people, they don't understand what they're even fighting for. And like that, all these no kings protests, I saw so many videos of people interviewing, what are you protesting for? And they have no clue. Or, hey, somebody just gave me this sign. That's how all of this works here stateside, is people get brainwashed into thinking, oh, well, I mean, it's not fair the way they're being treated and this and that. But they have no idea, like, the actual foundation of it, if that makes sense. I mean, people are so ignorant.
Right. Well, Cornbrob says we should be fighting to maintain our own land and our own borders. We get bled for the past 20 years in foreign wars. Let's fight for our own sovereignty for now. I agree with that, but you don't think for 1 minute that Iran is actually an extreme threat to the United States? Like they always have been. Not Iraq, not talking about Afghanistan, but Iran has always been an extreme threat to the United States and to our allies, not just Israel. If they have the capabilities and backed by Russia and backed by China to carry out, again, Russia will come to the table because there isn't a deep religious hate for America. China will come to the table because there's not a deep religious hate for America. But you cannot come to the table with Iran because there is a deep religious hate for Western culture. It is a threat to not only America, but France, Spain, anybody that even hints at having some sort of Christian organized religion, Christian-based organized religion. They will hunt you forever and ever and ever. And so if there is any threat in the Middle East, it has to be Iran. And so if you allow Iran to take away Israel, the only look at it this way. If anything else, Israel has been doing the work for us for a long fucking time.
Mm-hmm.
Israel has been doing a lot for the Middle East that we don't have to do ourselves. Want to believe it or not, like, yeah, we might be sending them money to do it, but that's a lot better than sending our troops in to do it. Israel has put forth or put together a lot of stability in the Middle East and has kept the Middle East at bay for a very long time. You cannot rightfully deny that. You cannot argue that point. Without Israel, where it's been and what they have done, we would have been there no matter what. And if you really do believe in genocides and all those other things, like we would 100% be there because you don't want an Iran to flourish. Lebanon and Syria, you don't want those to flourish. And that's just a reality. That's just facts. And again, it's hard for you to understand if you're not religious, but name a war that wasn't religiously backed, a religiously backed war.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to do so. I mean, to be honest with you.
I can't think of a single one.
Right.
You know?
I literally was like, all right, shit, maybe I can prove him wrong.
Go for it.
Not this, not that one.
You know, I mean, even when the French were trying to fight the Spanish in America, in Florida, you know, during the whole massacre, the whole Matanzas Inlet massacre, that was all based on whether they converted or they didn't convert. And then they did convert. And when they did convert, they were just granted a quicker death.
Right.
Which sucks. Every war, you know, is religiously based. So my opinion on the Iran war is I think diplomacy should be number one. I don't want to go to war with anybody. I really don't want to see a war with Iran. I've been following this very closely for a while now. And I do think that where we're at politically is because of the mistakes that were made by Obama. His soft, you know, even China was building their own islands, military strategic islands. And they literally said they did it because Obama didn't care. You can go back and research that if you want. But they dredged islands to land full-size aircraft and literally said, we can just do it because we can. Nobody's even they didn't even threat sanctions for it. So they were just like, fuck it. Yeah, if you're going to let us do it, let us do it, which only strengthens them militarily without any kind of sanctions. And so then we have this whole Iran deal that was put in place, which is a bad deal. It's a terrible deal. And it was a deal that was making big government richer, and they were getting more deals, and they knew that it was going to allow them to send more troops and give them more reasons to send troops into Syria and everything. Because if Iran has everything that they need, by the way, when you put sanctions on Iran, I'll leave it with this. When Iran had the sanctions, they were falling apart. Their society was falling apart. They were losing money. They were having protests in the streets. They had political instability, and they were not a threat to anyone. And then all of a sudden, they get, 8 trillion American dollars? Well, $150 billion, which is equivalent in their terms to 8 trillion US dollars. They get $8 trillion Iran deal to where they can have centrifuges and they can have uranium, and they're in charge of their own inspections, and they have 24 hours to get ready for an inspection, which again in Iran 24 hours is a lifetime because those mountains are so vast and you can move so deep into those mountains that nobody would ever find what you're doing.
I wanted to pull in real quick with what Hannity said with the inspections. It's like me going and doing, we do annual fire inspections of all our businesses in our communities. It's like me saying, hey, I'm going to come in and do your fire inspection. Oh, no, we've got our own inspectors, but we'll let you know 24 hours
if we're good.
that we're good.
That's 100% right.
It's
and
so
they
stupid.
do that. And it allows Iran's economy to get back and going. All of a sudden, the Ayatollah and Hezbollah and everything, all the laws come back. The protests subside because the government is back in control and they have the money to be in control. And then as that starts to happen and they start to get organized, then they attack Israel and then they start to get on the move. Which, by the way, that money that was used for Hamas in Gaza was all funded by Iran, and so that was Iran attacking Israel through proxy, by proxy. So that deal, that Iranian deal, was set in place so that America could have a reason to have troops in Syria, to have troops near Lebanon, to have troops in Iraq, to have troops in all of that was put in place because if we have an Iran that has collapsed, we don't have a Middle Eastern war anymore. And we have Israel just doing their thing. Living in, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. They needed that. Big government needs big war. And that is the easiest one because they hate America. And that is the easiest one to justify. That is my perspective on it. And I might be wrong. I'd love to hear your arguments. So I don't look at this as like, oh, another Iraq or another Afghanistan. That's not where I don't see that as another Iraq or Afghanistan. What I see this as Hillary Clinton, the Obama administration, put these puzzle pieces together so that we would have no choice but to have a direct conflict in 8 to 10 years, a 10-year plan. We're at year 9, folks. We're at year 9. If that's a 10-year plan, they did a pretty fucking good job, and it makes a lot of sense. I'd love to know what you think. You can follow us at FAWKES _news on Instagram. Send us some DMs on your opinions. Don't be afraid. I'm not going to post your opinion if you don't want to post it, and I'll have a debate, or maybe you can change my perspective. Feel free to follow us at FAWKES _news on Instagram. It's so small that I'm able to respond very quickly to the messages over there because it's 277 followers I think on that account. Much easier than my own personal accounts or a Fair Steps account, which has 15,000+ subscribers on those, or 8,000 right here on our Fair Step YouTube of 8K. So this is a lot easier for me to manage. So head over there. You can also follow Jason Kiefer, One More and I'm Out of Here podcast. I will be hosting Beth and Greg from the Bar is Open with Beth and Greg podcast this week. So they will be in from Texas,
awesome.
Staying with me, for a little while. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I don't know what we're going to get into. Monday.
When's that happen?
They get in Monday. So we will be up to shenanigans, probably doing some podcasts together, traveling together, maybe go take them to the mountains, things like that. So we'll see what's going to happen there. Until then, guys, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll probably put out a quickie here. I know that we have to get into this whole aircraft crashing and also this assassination thing. So we'll do a quickie in the next day or two to kind of give our takes on that, letting kind of that unfold because there's a lot of misinformation, disinformation. You got to give it that 48-hour, 72-hour rule before you start making accusations, because you never know, and the information changes on a dime. So we'll wait for there. Tune in again to One More and I'm Out of Here podcast. Go ahead and give them a follow. We'll see you guys on the next one. G.I. Joe said it the best. Maybe you didn't know that we were about to go to war with Iran, but now you do know, and knowing is half the battle. Cheers.
Cheers.